Hello, my name is Tim Kremer. I'm the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards Association. Welcome to this episode of Newsmakers. I'm very pleased to welcome my guest today, who is Nancy Zimpher, who is the 12th Chancellor of the State University of New York, has 463,000 students across 64 colleges and universities, the largest comprehensive higher education system in the United States. Dr. Zimpher, welcome.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you here. Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the impact SUNY is having on pre-K through 12 students, the people who, the students who my people represent, as well as teacher preparation programs, which you and I have been talking a lot about. I'm kind of curious right now as to what do you think about where we're at today, that with the Common Core Learning Standards or some other form of educational standards, testing, and how that work has helped prepare students for entry into college?
Well, it's a big question and it takes a big answer, but I'm going to try to boil it down. I think we always will want to have standards. New York has such a great reputation. You know, when we were in Ohio, people looked east. They looked at the regents and the regents exam. And so I think we're in a period where we're listening better. Yeah. I have a great deal of respect for the work that Mary Ellen Elia is doing as commissioner. I think she's all over the state, and I've been all over the state. You've been all over the state. You know what that takes. I think we will always have some form of assessment. But what we were mostly interested in when we started down this path is to make sure high school students who are graduating from the PK-12 system were college ready, actually college and career ready, which is...
And I remember you saying repeatedly during those conversations, that's why we're here, guys. They're not there yet.
And I think that icing on the cake, and this is really where we've got to get to, is the diagnostic. I'm not so sure test is the right word. What we need to know early in high school, maybe sophomore year, is what more you need to get ready for college. And when that doesn't happen, whether it's a test or a diagnostic or you're taking the PSAT, whatever the mechanism, when that doesn't happen, then we're stuck in a statistic of 40% of the students who come to college are not college ready. Right. That's what we're trying to fix, and the only way we can fix that is together.
Well, but you do have kids who are coming into these colleges who need some serious remediation.
We do.
And that is an issue that costs people money. It sometimes, the data would suggest that if you're going into a remedial program, your chances of eventually graduating are actually reduced.
Isn't that ironic? Yeah. That which we think is helping you is hurting you, because the longer you stay in non-credit generating courses that aren't going to count toward your college degree, you're in trouble. So the two areas that we have to focus on are math readiness and literacy. And math is the killer. And it shouldn't be. We should enjoy math. So we do have a mechanism for buying down that remedial need. We're getting kids out of remedial math faster, but it would really make so much sense if we were doing that earlier. So this is the reason why the two sectors, K-12 and higher education, have to work more closely together. You know, these early college high schools, they are a mechanism for getting more of the college curriculum in high school.
I love to see the partnership that you formed with Commissioner Elia, because you're doing just that. You're modeling that relationship we need to have, and we're so happy that you guys are working together on a variety of fronts.
Yeah, actually, sometimes we go to the podium together just to paint a picture. I sort of wish we both had a billboard on, I'm higher ed, you're PK-12, get this, we are working together. And that makes everybody else think about working together. We've actually been giving some panels and speeches nationally to say the same thing. Yeah. And especially with the Every Child Succeeds Act, whatever its future, we have to be together on this plan for the future.
Well, these students that are coming to SUNY and are applying, are they well qualified for whatever there awaits them after graduation from high school?
Well, that statistic of 40% is, plus or minus. So not half, but a little less than half needs something. And so that readiness is on us as well. And I will tell you this, Tim, if we could figure this out sooner, then and this is something Commissioner Elia is just really excited about, and we too, but we need to give up the placement exam. It's not necessary anymore. Let's get it right in high school, not just with the burden on you. As I've said so many times, we prepare the teachers that are in your classroom.
Right.
So we have to find a way to make sure what's happening, not only in high school, but as you well know, in middle school and elementary and pre-K, we have to make sure that that all adds up, and adds up on time when you're in the classes, not later.
If there's something that you could particularly point to that the students are lacking, words of wisdom you might offer, say, here's the one thing you could do, or there's two things you could do that would really prepare you for college entrance.
I think it is that high school experience, and I think it's a phrase we're using more regularly, math for understanding.
Okay.
So that math instruction really says to students, you are going to need this, and we're teaching in such a way that you understand how you need it. And then communication skills.
Okay, math and communications, focus in on that. I appreciate that. Recently, the governor announced the Excelsior Scholarship Program. It's been identified as free tuition, and I think we all know that's not necessarily true. Tell us a little bit about the Excelsior Scholarship Program.
Well, this was introduced prior to the State of the State address as part of the executive budget. It has three amazing qualifications. First of all, it raised the eligibility of families to $125,000. That means if you earn less than $125,000, you're eligible to apply. Secondly, it did something that no other state in the union has done. It expands the reach to four-year universities. You could use this eligibility to go to either a community college or a baccalaureate institution. And then thirdly, which is really important to both of us, it says that staying in college is really important, and the governor's interpretation of that is enroll full-time, 15 credit hours instead of 12 or less. Now, that put a lot of heartburn to people who know that students often take less than 15 hours because they're working. Far too many of our students are working full-time or part-time. But in the literal interpretation of that, take 30 hours over a year, which means you can make up at summer if you need to. So I guess all three of those points are of interest, and all three are somewhat controversial to different constituencies. But it is the most robust and one of the boldest policies of any state in the nation.
Well, certainly if you're going to get this kind of assistance, then you would hope that maybe you don't have to have that full-time job coupled with
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to say is that completion saves you money. Far too many
Absolutely.
students are staying too long. If you're a parent, you know this. The kid comes home, he or she says, I didn't get this one course, I got to go back for a semester. So you've just added for us $6,200 that you wouldn't have needed to spend. So we're working really hard to use these supports. The tuition assistance program in New York is amazing.
Yeah.
It always has been. Most of those students are eligible for federal money, the Pell Grants.
Right.
So this Excelsior is a last dollar, but it might be that most important dollar.
Just as an aside, how many percentage-wise, how many students actually do graduate in 4 years?
Well, less than 50%.
Yeah.
It goes up in 6 years to about 65%. We, in the last 2 years, have announced our own intention to increase the degree granting student to 60,000 more than we do now. I mean, we graduate 93,000 students a year.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a
but
lot.
you know what? It's not enough.
Yeah, yeah. The private colleges and universities have had some pushback, I think, on this
Right.
Excelsior program. How is this going to impact them?
Well, as you know, they have access to the tuition assistance program and have for years. And it is wonderful that the state of New York can spread its support to not only SUNY and CUNY, but to our independent colleges. But in this case, I think the governor was kind of leaning on the public universities to
Yeah.
say, you are New York's public entity.
Right.
serve these students, and here's how we, the state of New York, are going to help you better serve those students. That is the charge of public higher education in this state and in this country. And so it does, in this case, differentiate the two. But we are partners in so many respects. Even the work you and I are doing in teacher education has the independent colleges at the table. But in this instance, I think what the governor was trying to say is my responsibility with these major public university systems, and you know, the City University and SUNY work hand in glove. This is good for us, it's good for our students, and we will leave it to the legislature and the governor to figure out how to put it into law. Well, you know, when you step back, the fact that the governor is so engaged in public higher education is first and foremost why keep the conversation going. This is really good.
Well, he has these 3 daughters who have been involved at that level of education.
Makes a difference.
It all of a sudden becomes more real for all of us. I appreciate that. Among those 64 colleges and universities, some of them are community colleges. Tell me about your community colleges.
Well, you know, when you introduced me, it's a long sentence, but when you say largest and most comprehensive, we are saying something, because we are one of the few systems in the entire country that has under one umbrella the 4-year and the 2-year.
Yes.
So for us, it's a pipeline. There are 30 of them. They are distributed all over the state. They partner well with our baccalaureate institutions, and I dare say this is one of the areas where a number of the students in community colleges might gravitate to an independent college as well.
Right.
That's just as important to them as it is to us. But by and large, these are students who we take every student. The bar is college, you know, high school completion. Even we can fix that too if you haven't finished high school. And they are really the workhorse of the system. They are absolutely partnering with career and technical education in our high schools.
Right.
And in our local communities, I see it everywhere, the demand for welders in Rochester, or air transportation specialists in Plattsburgh. Whatever the area of emphasis is, that's where the community college can be a feeder.
You know, I started my academic career at a community college, and I
Did you?
well, it wasn't one of yours, it was back in Michigan. But it was an experience that I look back on, and I'm really glad I did, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to this community college. It was part-time, I was working, I was in and out, night class and stuff, but I kind of figured out what I was good at, what I liked, and it took me a little while to get there. But the community college gave me that opportunity.
That is what it's all about. When we look at the students who are getting that 4-year degree, 40% of our graduating class at our baccalaureate institutions started at a community college.
Well, one of the things I'm very proud to say is I think every single credit that I had at the community college transferred over to my 4-year institution, and I was able to graduate in pretty briefly. I think it was less than maybe like 3 years.
Yeah.
I was like a second quarter or second semester sophomore when I went over there. It was wonderful.
Well, you made my year. And I'll tell you, we've worked on this thing we call seamless transfer forever. But in the last 4 years, we have perfected this process down to the point where if a student doesn't get that full credit for the courses taken, they can appeal it and we can fix it.
In the area of workforce development, you and I have had a lot of recent conversations around the idea of workforce development as it relates to teacher recruits.
Right.
Teach New York. You have this program that you and Commissioner Ilya have spearheaded. Tell me about Teach New York.
Well, it really starts with the fact that SUNY graduates about 5,000 teachers a year. It is our largest professional program in all of our campuses. So it's alive and well in 16 of our baccalaureate institutions, and about 2/3 of our community colleges have a bona fide pre-teacher ed program at the 2-year campus. So we have to pay attention to our largest, and I would say one of our most important, if not everybody's got a teacher. You don't get to be a physicist if you haven't had good teachers.
Right.
And that's the way we have to think about it. That said, we felt that we really needed to lift up the teaching profession at this time because, as you know, we are having teacher shortages already, not just universal, but by region and by discipline. So we need more second language teachers, we need more special ed teachers, we need more STEM teachers. We've known this, but it is finally catching up with us. And we may need under maybe as many as 180,000 new teachers in the next 10 years. By joining together our school boards, our superintendents, principals, instructional leaders, our teachers unions, and our higher education community, with the policy, the rules and regulations of the state education department, make this happen. We may need some legislation. We're looking at year-long and semester-long residencies. We might need some enacted law to get there. We're looking at the way we partner with your schools. Do we have the time and the supervision for our student teachers that we need? And importantly, do we have the teachers we need?
Yeah.
So Teach New York is all about those issues.
Well, I appreciate being in the room. I sometimes feel like I'm the only management voice in the room, I must say. And you and the commissioner have gone about this work really looking at it as kind of a workforce development proposition.
Right.
We have to do this from a management perspective. We need to make sure we have the most qualified, highly qualified individual in every classroom. From my point of view, I do worry a little bit about us lowering standards. We see the regents are talking about doing away with the academic literacy skills test. We see, and that's my point of view, and I know not everyone agrees with that. This idea that we somehow are going to make sure that almost anybody can be certified as a teacher does concern me. On the other hand, I also have heard, Tim, you're old school here. You need to have people in front of students who look like them, act like them, have experiences, cultural literacy, understanding, different than what you have. So tell me a little bit about how we're maybe going to address some of those issues.
Well, I think it's not either or. We need a more diversified teacher population. We really still see about 80% of the teachers in classrooms who are white. We have a much more diverse culture. Our children, I think 2 years ago, the country eclipsed the minority, so that the minority is the majority in our schools. So job one, diversify the teaching force.
Okay.
Job two, keep the standards high. And
Thank you.
from this
Thank you.
commission, we agreed to a 3.0 as an admission standard for teacher preparation, like it is in many other of our disciplines.
Now, if I recall, the teachers union did not endorse the Teach New York report because they felt that somehow you hadn't asked them properly. Is that correct?
I think we're over that.
Are we over that? I hope so.
I so appreciate the fact that at our Teach New York table, everybody's there.
Yeah.
The union for the city of New York, and the union for the state, and the union for the faculty.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've been thrilled with their participation. So, we don't always get it right.
Right.
And participation and inclusion is so, so important. But here's the fear. If we enter a terrible shortage and we just have to put a person in front of the class,
Right.
that's the scary part. That's why we're trying to get ahead of that, so that
Yes.
we don't have an unqualified teacher in the classroom.
I know in the things that we've talked about, English language learners are obviously growing in
Right.
the number of in seats within classrooms, and teachers who can address English language learners. Special education, maybe special education and English language learners
Right.
combined, CTE type of teachers. Those are the kind of people that seem to be really in need. And then you have, as you said before, regionally and geographically, it's difficult sometimes to attract teachers.
In fact, we're working with the Department of Labor, as you know, and we're really going to try to boil it down to the region, so that we're not just with a broad brushstroke figuring out, okay, we do need more STEM teachers, but in Plattsburgh, what kind of STEM teachers?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
how do we not compromise the need for special ed and second language? So I think your constituency would appreciate the fact that local needs and local control matters to everybody.
Yes.
So let's take this recruitment issue and put it right down into the region so that we can get it right.
No, I appreciate that. One of the things we were very committed to was annual professional performance review, APPR. But it became so test driven.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I remember a long time ago being told these tests that are created to measure student progress, they were never created to measure teacher evaluations.
Right.
And it took me a while to kind of remember that and figure that out, but I think it's true.
Well, I think where we are, and again, the Teach New York Commission will come to this point. For national board certification for teachers, they use a portfolio system where you have lots of opportunity to speak to student growth and what mechanisms you've used to enable students that sort of put a context around the test. And I think if we push that back into teacher evaluation, more portfolio driven, more observations, more looking at what's going on in the classroom, we can get there, but it takes time. It takes personal investment. It takes deciding who are the best teachers in the classroom to do this kind of supervisory work. What is our responsibility as a university to be there as well?
Right.
So it probably says that we won't get all of our work done on Teach New York this year.
Right.
We'll have to stick with it.
Right. Is teaching, public school teaching, is that still an attractive profession?
I think it's challenging. We have listened to now almost 1,000 teachers across the state of New York. You've heard the commentary. Teachers are feeling like it's a really tough time for them, like they're the scapegoat for all the educational challenges we have. And they don't feel rewarded, and they're exhausted. They don't have any professional time during the school day to do what they need to do. So lifting up the teaching profession is job one for me, for us, in our work.
Well, you have had an extraordinary career so far, and I know this is not a retirement. This is simply moving on to your next chapter, so I don't want to even bring that word up. But we do know that you have determined that you're going to resign your position come June of this year.
Yeah, that's right.
And as you look back on your time in New York and in Wisconsin and Ohio, you look back, what are some of the things you're most proud of?
Well, as you noted earlier, I'm a product of public schools. My mother was a teacher, my father was a principal. How many times have you heard this story? The fact that I've been able to lead in an environment where teacher education is so important to the work of the institutions I serve is probably my highest privilege. Working in New York and working in this amazing system has been such a culmination. But you're right, there's more to be done, and I hope to stick with these issues for some time to come.
Well, what are your plans? What are you planning to do next?
Well, I'm so busy trying to cram 4 more years into 4 more months that what I do know is you have to go with what you know and what means the most to you personally. If I were a physicist, I'd stick with it. So I will be working in teacher education. I will be working in building this relationship between K-12 and higher ed. I just don't know what the box is going to be.
Okay, good.
But I am committed to the work we're doing with the commissioner, and I've told her as well, I hope to help wherever I can as we continue.
Well, you've been extraordinary in everything that you've done, and it's been a pleasure to have you here. We've been working on having this little interview for quite a while.
We're busy.
And so for that reason, as a way to reward us, because we are fellow Buckeyes, because we went to, I got this a while back when I first tried to interview you.
Oh, no
and I've been
kidding.
sitting around
People
waiting for you.
probably wondered what you're doing with
That's
this.
right. So I wanted to make sure that as my appreciation to you for all that you've done and for conducting this interview with me, I give you my little Buckeye bear.
Well, I accept it on behalf of all Buckeyes, but most importantly, what a privilege it has been to work with you, Tim. And it's always important that people can go back in their experience and remember when we were at a different stage in our career, and this will always remind me of that.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
All
Thank you,
right.
Tim.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been our latest episode of NYSSBA Newsmakers. I am Tim Kremer, the Executive Director of New York State School Boards Association. Thank you for viewing this.